Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh, coming up in the next hour. Prime Minister Narendra Modi reveals 4 astronaut-designates of India's maiden human space mission, Gaganyaan, says the mission carries aspirations of 140 crore Indians. India questions why UN Security Council has been completely ineffective in resolving Russia-Ukraine conflict, highlights urgent need to reform UNSC. NATO chief denies plans to send troops to Ukraine after French president's suggestion. Kremlin warns it could result in direct conflict with NATO. And Japan's demographic woes deepen. New births fall to record low in 2023. Indian astronauts who will be part of nation's first human space mission, Gaganyaan, were introduced today by Prime Minister Narendra Modi in Kerala. The mission seeks to launch human crew to an orbit of 400 kilometers for a 3-day mission, bring them back safely to Earth as well. Only 3 countries in the world have achieved this feat so far. Here's more.
Pushing the excitement and anticipation around the Gaganyaan mission to the next level, Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Tuesday revealed the astronaut-designates of India's maiden human space mission. The astronaut-designates are Group Captain Prashant Balakrishnan Nair, Group Captain Ajit Krishnan, Group Captain Angad Pratap and Wing Commander Shubhanshu Shukla. Hailing India's milestone space mission, Prime Minister Narendra Modi said, after 40 years, an Indian is going to space. But now, the time, the countdown and the rocket is ours.
40 वर्ष के बाद कोई भारतीय अंतरिक्ष में जाने वाला है। लेकिन इस बार टाइम भी हमारा है, काउंटडाउन भी हमारा है और रॉकेट भी हमारा है।
Prime Minister Modi said, as India is set to become the top 3 economy of the world, at the same time, the country's Gaganyaan is also going to take our space sector to new heights. Prime Minister Narendra Modi said by 2035, India will have its own space station that will help us study the unknown expanses of space.
2035 तक अंतरिक्ष में भारत का अपना स्पेस स्टेशन होगा जो हमें स्पेस के अज्ञात विस्तार को जानने में मदद करेगा।
Gaganyaan project envisages demonstration of human spaceflight capability by launching a human crew to an orbit of 400 kilometers for a 3-day mission and bringing them back safely to Earth. Prime Minister Modi also inaugurated 3 important space infrastructure projects worth over 1,800 crore rupees in Thiruvananthapuram. The projects include the PSLV integration facility at the Satish Dhawan Space Centre, Sriharikota, new semi-cryogenics integrated engine and stage test facility at the ISRO propulsion complex at Mahendragiri, and trisonic wind tunnel at VSSC, Thiruvananthapuram. India has emerged as a leading spacefaring nation in the recent years. India has achieved many milestones, including the grand success of the recent Chandrayaan-3 mission. India became the first country to land a spacecraft near the moon's south pole. The ambitious Gaganyaan mission will make India the 4th nation in the world to launch a human spaceflight mission. So far, only the USA, Russia and China have launched human spaceflight missions. Bureau Report, DD India.
And let's learn more about the 4 astronauts who have been selected for Gaganyaan mission. They're all ace pilots of the Indian Air Force and are now part of India's maiden space mission.
It's a dream come true for these 4 Air Force pilots. They have been shortlisted to travel on the country's maiden space flight, scheduled next year. Meet Group Captain Prasar Bharati Nair. He was born in Tiruvallur, Kerala on 26 August 1976. An alumnus of NDA and recipient of Sword of Honor at the Air Force Academy, Prasar Bharati Nair was commissioned on 19th December 1998 in the fighter stream of the Indian Air Force. He is a Cat A flying instructor and a test pilot with approximately 3,000 hours of flying experience. An alumnus of United States Staff College and a directing staff at the Defense Services Staff College, Wellington, and Flying Instructors School, Tambaram, he commanded a premier fighter Su-30 squadron. The second is Group Captain Ajit Krishnan. He was born in Chennai, Tamil Nadu on 19th April 1982. An alumnus of NDA and recipient of President's Gold Medal and Sword of Honor at the Air Force Academy, Ajit Krishnan was commissioned on 21st June 2003 in the fighter stream of the Indian Air Force. He is flying instructor and a test pilot with nearly 2,900 hours of flying experience. He is also alumnus of Defense Services Staff College, Wellington. Next is Group Captain Angat Pratap. He was born in Prayagraj on 17th July 1982, an alumnus of NDA, and was commissioned on 18th December 2004 in the fighter stream. He is a flying instructor and a test pilot with nearly 2,000 hours of flying experience. Meet Wing Commander Shubhangshu Shukla. He was born in Lucknow, Uttar Pradesh on 10th October 1985. An alumnus of NDA and commissioned on 17th June 2006 in the fighter stream. Shubhangshu Shukla is a fighter combat leader and a test pilot with nearly 2,000 hours of flying experience. With Bureau Inputs, Shagnik Chakraborty, DD India.
Prime Minister Modi today also addressed a mega public gathering, Bharatiya Janata Party in southern state of Kerala. Prime Minister addressing the gathering stressed that development of the state has been the centre's priority. He also mentioned about the benefits that people of the state are getting from public welfare schemes.
आज केरला के 1.5 करोड़ से ज्यादा लोग भाजपा सरकार की फ्री राशन योजना का लाभ उठा रहे हैं। आयुष्मान भारत योजना के जरिए यहां के लोगों को करीब 5,500 करोड़ रुपए का मुफ्त इलाज मिला है। केरला के 36 लाख से अधिक घरों को जल जीवन मिशन के तहत नल से जल की सुविधा मिली है। केरला के 40 लाख किसानों को सम्मान निधि के रूप में सीधी आर्थिक मदद मिली है। राज्य में 50 लाख से अधिक मुद्रा लोन बांटे गए हैं।
Prime Minister Narendra Modi participated in a program called Creating the Future Digital Mobility for Automotive MSME Entrepreneurs in Madurai, Tamil Nadu on Tuesday and addressed thousands of micro, small and medium enterprises, also known as MSMEs, entrepreneurs working in the automotive sectors in particular. In his address, PM said, "Today our MSMEs have a great opportunity to become strong part of the global supply chain. But for that, MSMEs will have to pay more attention on quality and durability."
अनेकों वैश्विक संभावनाएं भी हमारे दरवाजे पर दस्तक दे रही है। साथियों, हमारी एमएसएमईज के पास आज ये बहुत बड़ा मौका है कि वो ग्लोबल सप्लाई चेन का मजबूत हिस्सा बने। लेकिन इसके लिए हमारी एमएसएमईज को अपनी गुणवत्ता पर, अपनी क्वालिटी और ड्यूरेबिलिटी पर और ज्यादा काम करना होगा।
German singer and songwriter Cassandra May Spitman and her mother called on India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi in Tamil Nadu on Tuesday. The singer sang Achutham Keshavam, the Tamil song, in front of Prime Minister, who could be seen in the video enjoying her music. Cassandra May Spitman was mentioned by Prime Minister in one of his Mann Ki Baat radio programs. She sings songs, especially devotional songs, in many Indian languages. Take a listen.
अच्युतं केशवं रामनारायणं अच्युतं केशवं रामनारायणं कृष्णदामोदरं वसुदेवं भजे कृष्णदामोदरं वसुदेवं भजे हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे।
Thailand's Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs, Parnpree Bahiddha-Nukara, paid courtesy call on India's Vice President, Jagdeep Dhankar, at his residence in New Delhi. Discussions underscored the existing civilizational ties, including cultural, linguistic and religious connections, on which the present-day India-Thailand robust partnership is based. Earlier in the day, India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar welcomed the Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister of Thailand, Bahiddha-Nukara. Dr. Jaishankar and Thailand's Deputy Prime Minister chaired the 10th India-Thailand Joint Commission meeting in the national capital. This is his first official visit to India, which is scheduled for 4 days. India is all set to witness its first ever Startup Mahakumbh, the largest celebration of Indian startups, from 18th to 20th March at the prestigious Bharat Mandapam, New Delhi. The event will cement India's reputation as the melting pot of innovation and amplify the country's global startup footprint. The event is expected to host over 1,000 startups, 10 plus thematic tracks, 1,000 plus investors, over 500 incubators and accelerators, 5,000 plus conference delegates, 10 plus country delegations, 5,000 plus future entrepreneurs and over 40,000 business visitors over the span of 3 days. Speaking at the curtain raiser, India's Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal emphasized that throughout the 3 days of Startup Mahakumbh, the startups will be able to engage with investors and relevant stakeholders and create a sub-ecosystem to support each other with ideas and learn from experience of others.
Showcase to the world that this is only a 8 years young startup story, but in less than 8 years we've become the third largest in the world with big aspirations for the future, sporting over 100 unicorns, with a number of good ideas on the anvil to grow and become bigger and better.
Time for a short break. Still to come on DD India News Hour. US President Joe Biden confirms that Israel has agreed to halt military operations in Gaza. Kremlin warns of conflict with NATO if the alliance troops fight in Ukraine. World Trade Organization announces enforcement of new regulations to streamline international services trade.
In a world that never stops, where information shapes our reality, one app stands out, helps you stay ahead of time. Introducing the DD India app, your gateway to a world of news right at your fingertips. Your most trusted source of news goes global, goes digital. Explore a world of options, top stories, live updates, in-depth analysis, and more. Stay informed wherever you are. Real-time alerts keep you ahead of the curve always. The DD India app, connecting you to the world one story at a time. Download now and explore the world of knowledge, insights, and
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. In the ongoing Israel-Hamas conflict, all eyes are on possible ceasefire ahead of the holy month of Ramadan. Truce negotiations are also focused on safe return of Israeli hostages. DD India's Meher Makuri reports.
US President Joe Biden has confirmed that Israel has agreed to halt military operations in Gaza during the holy month of Ramadan. Meanwhile, Hamas is considering a proposed truce that includes the cessation of hostilities and a prisoner hostage exchange.
Well, I hope by the beginning of the weekend, the end of the week, that we're close. We're close. It's not done yet. And my hope is by next Monday, we'll have a ceasefire.
Biden's comments come as negotiators try to hammer out the first extended truce deal as time runs out for him before November presidential polls. The situation in Gaza and West Asia has become a focal point in the US presidential campaign.
I think Biden has done a pretty good job. I believe that he is juggling very hot balls right now.
US negotiators are under pressure to strike a peace deal soon. While Israel continues its apparent offensive against Hamas in Gaza, the World Health Organization has said it delivered crucial medical supplies and medications on the weekend to the Al Amal hospital along with the UN agencies. Tuesday also saw the Hezbollah claiming to have fired a volley of rockets at an Israeli aerial surveillance base in response to Monday's Israeli attacks, which targeted the terror group's commander in southern Lebanon. The latest chapter of a decades-old conflict began after Hamas launched an unprecedented assault on Israel on the 7th of October last year, with hundreds of gunmen infiltrating communities near the Gaza Strip. Israeli military says more than 200 soldiers and civilians, including women and children, were taken to Gaza as hostages. Most of them still remain unreleased. Meher Makuri's report, DD India.
And DD India correspondent Sarah Coates joins us live from Tel Aviv. Sarah, what is the latest on the proposed truce deal?
Hi, Shubhendu. Still no comment from Israeli officials on this deal that is currently being worked on around the clock. But there really isn't too much optimism here in Israel, despite what we've heard from the US president and also from the key mediator, Doha. Hebrew media is reporting, quoting a senior Israeli official as saying that he doesn't understand what Biden's optimism is actually based on. While we've also heard from a Hamas official, according to Reuters, as saying that Biden's comments there are premature. So certainly there is a lot of hope, of course, being pinned that there may be a deal. We do know that the Emir of Qatar is right now in Paris, holding talks with the French President Emmanuel Macron, really hoping to get something through over the next few hours, as that report mentioned, before Ramadan, which starts here on around the 10th of March. This is when Israel says it will potentially launch this ground offensive into the southern city of Rafah if the hostages are not released by then.
And while peace is being negotiated, how do things stand in Gaza, Rafah, fighting and the aid delivery?
It is extremely dire. Israel is right now being accused by the United Nations of systematically blocking humanitarian access to the people in Gaza. This is according to the UN humanitarian spokesperson. He says that all aid convoys that were planned for going into the northern parts of the Gaza Strip have been blocked over the past few weeks, saying that the last aid convoy that went into the northern part of the Strip was actually on January 23. Now, this spokesperson, Jens Lerke, he also referred to an incident that happened on Sunday, allegedly. He says that there was an evacuation of 24 patients from the Al Amal hospital in Khan Yunis that was previously given the okay by Israeli forces. He then says that this convoy was stopped, that the ambulance officers and the patients inside were taken out and they were stripped. And he says this is simply not an isolated incident. We're also hearing, according to the Palestinian Red Crescent, that it has ceased its operations for the next 48 or so hours, citing concerns for employees in Gaza. And it is certainly an absolutely shocking situation for the people on the ground. They are desperately hoping that these talks that are happening right now on a ceasefire will eventuate and become something permanent with the conditions on the ground in Gaza being described as hell-like.
Sarah, appreciate you joining us with those updates. And amid tensions in the Red Sea, US Central Command reported destroying 3 unmanned surface vessels and 2 mobile anti-ship cruise missiles and one-way attack unmanned aerial vehicle in self-defense within the Houthi-controlled areas of Yemen on Monday. The US command stated that USVs and ASCMs were an imminent threat to merchant vessels and US Navy ships in the region, adding that these actions were taken to protect freedom of navigation and make international waters safer and more secure. Greece's frigate Hydra departed for the Red Sea on Monday to participate in a mission to protect merchant ships from attacks by Yemen's Houthi militants. Earlier, the Greek government had approved a proposal by the Defence Minister Nikos Thandias for the country's participation in the European Union mission dubbed Avenophore Aspides in the Red Sea. France, Italy and Germany are also taking part in the EU mission. Houthi attacks have disrupted Greek-owned commercial vessels' activities at the country's biggest port, Piraeus, since November last year. India has questioned why the UN Security Council has been rendered, and I quote, completely ineffective in resolving the Russia-Ukraine conflict. India's permanent representative to the United Nations, Ruchira Kamboj, raised the question at the UN General Assembly plenary meeting held in New York to mark 2 years since the beginning of the Ukraine conflict. Ambassador Kamboj emphasized the urgent need for reforming the United Nations Security Council to enhance its effectiveness.
Conflict has continued for 2 years unabated. We, the Committee of UN Member States, must pause and ask ourselves 2 pressing questions. 1. Are we anywhere near a possible acceptable solution? And if not, why is it that the UN system, and particularly its principal organ, the United Nations Security Council, mandated to primarily maintain international peace and security? Why is it rendered completely ineffective to the resolution of the ongoing conflict? For multilateralism to be effective, Madam President, outdated and archaic structures need reform and reinventing, else their credibility will always be on the wane. And unless we fix that systemic flaw, we will continue to be found wanting.
Meanwhile, the Russia-Ukraine counteroffensives continue, with the conflict entering its 3rd year on February 24th. The Ukrainian Air Force said it destroyed Russia's 11 drone attack and a barrage of missiles on Sunday. According to Ukrainian officials, Russia in total launched some 13 attack drones, 4 of Kh-59 guided air missile, 1 air-to-surface, Kh-31P missile and ballistic missiles. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said cooperation and determination can end this conflict.
Everything that we do together to defend ourselves from Russian aggression add real security to our nations for decades ahead. Because each of Russia's losses and each of Russia's defeats teaches Russia and the other enemy nations of Europe and the free world as a whole that aggression does not and cannot give results. Cooperation and determinations are the 2 answers that everyone should give to the question of ending the war and bringing peace closer.
Hungary's parliament on Monday ratified Sweden's bid to join the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO. The parliament cleared the final obstacle for expansion of the military alliance spurred by Russia's operation in Ukraine. The head of NATO, meanwhile, said that US-led military alliance has no plans to send troops to Ukraine, after other Central European leaders also confirmed they too would not be providing soldiers. Earlier, French President Emmanuel Macron had suggested the idea of European nations sending troops to Ukraine.
Hungary's parliament approved Sweden's NATO accession on Monday, clearing the last hurdle before the historic step by the Nordic country whose neutrality lasted through 2 world wars and the simmering conflict of the Cold War. In a few days, the Scandinavian country will officially become the 32nd member country of the Atlantic Alliance. Sweden's NATO membership was supported by 188 lawmakers in the Hungarian parliament, with 6 against and no abstentions. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban's government has faced pressure from NATO allies to fall in line and seal Sweden's accession to the alliance. Sweden's Prime Minister hailed this as a historic day.
The parliaments of all NATO countries have now voted for Sweden to become a member of NATO, and it is of course a historic day we are witnessing. Sweden is leaving behind 200 years of neutrality and military non-alignment. It's a big step and something to take seriously, but it is also a very natural step that we take.
Getting approval from the Hungarian parliament was the final hurdle for Stockholm joining NATO. Swedish Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson visited Budapest on Friday to discuss defense and security cooperation with his Hungarian counterpart. The two sides agreed on a deal that would see Hungary acquire 4 new Swedish-made Gripen fighter jets. Meanwhile, US Secretary of State Antony Blinken welcomed Poland's foreign minister on Monday to Washington, noting the significant strengthening of NATO with Sweden's admission. Blinken praised the admission of Sweden in the alliance.
The Hungarian parliament approved the admission of Sweden to NATO. And so with that process now being completed, we very much look forward in the days ahead to finalizing everything and bringing Sweden into our alliance, our shared alliance.
While French President Emmanuel Macron opened the door on Monday to European nations sending troops to Ukraine, although he cautioned that there was no consensus on such a step at this stage.
Everything was discussed in a free and a direct manner tonight. There was no consensus today to send troops onto the ground in a manner that's official, assumed and endorsed. But on the dynamic, nothing should be excluded. We will do everything so that Russia cannot win this war.
Russia's operation in Ukraine in 2022 led to a dramatic turn in both public opinion and among political leaders. Swedish policy dictated that the country needed a strong military to protect its neutrality. Accession to the US-led alliance means stark changes for both Sweden's defense and the geopolitical balance in the region. Sweden also pursued an active foreign policy championing human rights and was labeled as a humanitarian superpower. For Sweden, joining the alliance also upends its traditional thinking of power relations in a potential conflict. Earlier, Finland and now Sweden joined NATO. That also means that the Baltic Sea becomes surrounded by alliance members. Stockholm abandoned its non-alignment policy for greater safety within the North Atlantic Treaty Organization in the wake of Russia's operation in Ukraine in 2022. But the operation left Sweden with a pivotal choice: either to join NATO or run the risk of standing alone against an increasingly aggressive near neighbor. The Hungarian ratification will now be signed by the country's Speaker of the Parliament and President within a few days. After that, the remaining formalities are likely to be concluded swiftly. Aman Kumar Himanshu's report for DD India.
And amidst these developments, the Kremlin warned on Tuesday that conflict between Russia and the US-led NATO military alliance would be inevitable if European members of NATO send troops to fight in Ukraine. The conflict in Ukraine has triggered the worst crisis in Russia's relations with the West since the 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis, and President Putin has previously warned of dangers of a direct confrontation between NATO and Russia. And DD India's Tasha Chernysova joins us from Moscow with more.
Moscow says the idea of sending NATO troops to Ukraine is a new, very important element. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said Tuesday that if that happens, the direct confrontation between Russia and NATO will be inevitable. He added that Moscow knows very well the position of France that aims to inflict a so-called strategic defeat on Russia. Having said that, Peskov reminded that there have been different reactions to the idea as it was discussed in Paris, and many countries who participated in the discussions have, quote, sober assessment of potential risks. He also urged NATO states to assess the idea and weigh on whether that meets the interests of the people in their countries. Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova reminded that just a month ago, Paris was denying its involvement in recruiting mercenaries for Ukraine and called it Russian propaganda. Russian lawmakers say the EU is unlikely to support Emmanuel Macron's idea and also know that the French army is not that strong. Moscow has long been saying that NATO is getting more and more involved into the Russia-Ukraine conflict and is not interested in ending it. Dasha Cherneshova in Moscow, reporting for DD India.
In a landmark decision made at the 13th Ministerial Conference in Abu Dhabi, the World Trade Organization, WTO, has announced enforcement of new regulations to streamline international services trade. Following extensive negotiations, WTO members finalized the adoption of these rules on December 2, 2021. WTO's Director General, Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, conveyed her gratitude towards India, South Africa and the European Union for making this a reality. The implementation of these regulations is a response to bureaucratic challenges faced by businesses in cross-border trade operations, and the aim is to simplify procedures and promote equal opportunities for service suppliers worldwide. Still to come on DD India News Hour. Decoding India's Gaganyaan mission after this break. Following a string of convictions, jailed former Pakistan PM Imran Khan and his wife Bushra Bibi indicted on graft charges again. And Japan's birth rate hits record low for 8th consecutive year.
World. Stories of challenges, struggles and accomplishment. A world battling conflict, hunger and poverty. Embracing growth, development, science and technology. A voice of progress, a voice of unity. Watch Voice of the Global South with me, Akshay Dongre, only on DD India.
Turning crisis into opportunity, transforming ideas into action, stories of real change, tales of sustainable solution. This series is going to tell stories of such change makers. Watch Change Makers on DD India. Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. Our top stories. Prime Minister Narendra Modi reveals 4 astronaut-designates of India's maiden human space mission, Gaganyaan, says the mission carries aspirations of 140 crore Indians. NATO chief denies plans to send troops to Ukraine after French president's suggestion. Kremlin warns it could result in direct conflict with NATO. And Japan's demographic woes deepen. New births fall to record low in 2023. We now return to our top story. Prime Minister introduced us to the astronauts of the Gaganyaan mission. To talk about this flagship mission, joining me are 2 special guests, Dr. S.V. Sharma, former Deputy Director of ISRO, and Mr. Ajay Lele, a space expert from the IDSA. Good evening and welcome, gentlemen. Dr. Sharma, if I can come to you, there are many recent milestones of India's space program. Chandrayaan-3, of course, the most recent. Now all eyes are on the Gaganyaan mission. How is it expected to take it to the next level?
Gaganyaan mission is a very unique mission, and it's the first time the country is trying to send an astronaut to the space. Okay, and the challenging task is that we have to take an astronaut safely and also bring him back. This is a big challenge. Therefore, there are international laws which are applicable whenever we are sending an astronaut to the space. it needs to ensure that the astronauts are trained very thoroughly from the physical, mental, psychological fitness, and they have been selected during 2018-19, and they have undergone very, very rigorous training of going to space and staying there for days and then come back. Okay, this is one part. Second part is, as far as the mission is concerned, it is required that we take the crew module and the service module, what we call it as crew module and the service module. Crew module is where the astronauts are going to sit. A service module is where the complete system, support system will be existing. Three consecutively, the crew module and the service module without the humans, only with the minuscules, what you are seeing now, will be taken to the space, and they have to be safely brought back. This is one of the biggest challenges and the requirement from the international space community point of view. Okay, even before that, the astronauts have to be safely ejaculated from the rocket. If ever anything happens on the launch pad, that's what we call as pad abort test. So the pad abort test has also been done successfully by the ISRO scientists during 2023 end, and now the next 3 mission will be unmanned space mission, exactly similar to one which is going to happen with the astronauts on board. So the complete preparation is on, and that's what you are seeing on the screen now.
Right, Mr. Ajay, only 3 countries, United States, Russia and China, have been able to send human space missions. How do you assess the inherent challenge in a mission of this kind, and what is going to be unique about India's Gaganyaan?
You see, as far as India's mission is concerned, it is a well-conceived mission. We have taken our own time, because if you see the clockwise things happening, Russia and US had done it many years back. The Chinese went to the space, the human flights, in the year 2023. But India progressed very gradually, number one. Number two is that we first ensured that our requirements of remote sensing, requirement of communications, requirement of meteorology are first getting fulfilled. And then only we started looking at missions like this. And even for such missions, we started by sending robotic crafts one by one, learning more about the things, also learning from the experiences of all the 3 countries when they have sent people out over there. As far as the interesting part of India's mission is there, as it has been mentioned today morning also, that most of the components, most of the systems are made in India systems. So now India can be proudly saying that it's not only Indian astronauts who are going to the space, they are going in the systems which have been built in India, and more importantly, which have been designed in India. I think what we have learned more over here is both the technology and science behind sending the humans to the space. Because sending a robotic craft or sending a robot inside a particular mission is a very easy task in a relative terms.
Right.
Because at that point in time, you're not concerned about the medical parameters. You're not concerned about oxygen. You're not concerned about environmental conditions under which the astronauts are going to work out. So these are the different challenges which were there. So we ensured that all these areas are first knit together, and then only now we will be venturing out with a human mission in the next year.
Right. Dr. Sharma, how does a space mission, you were telling us about a little more on that, how does it really test the limits of human capacity, and what does it mean for the astronauts to prepare for such a challenge?
Well, very good question. One is that the humans are designed to stay in an atmospheric condition. But when the astronauts, they go to space, it is a zero gravity, and it also has a very challenging environmental conditions. Plus the position which they are going to sit, and the amount of degree of freedom what they are going to have in the space is very, very limited. Totally 5 to 6 days. Please imagine that a person has to sit in his chair 5 to 6 days, not much of movement, not much of room to get up, stand up, etc. And there is, gravitational zero gravity effect, and also there are other issues in terms of space radiations, etc. is there. Of course, sufficient protection and the shielding, everything is available. But even then, it will not be as conducive as that of a person staying in the earth with the type of air conditioning.
And sir, they'll be orbiting the Earth. They'll be orbiting the Earth, as we understand, for 3 days.
Yes.
What are the provisions for food, for medical supplies? What are the things they would need during the mission?
Yes, the complete kit for a astronaut to stay in space for 5 to 6 days and extendable by 2 days is made available in the crew module and can link to the service module. As far as food is concerned, there are very specialized, foods with proteins and vitamins and all those types of requirements that a human needs with very, specialized preparation. As you have limitation in the space, and also there are issues of the waste disposals. Okay, therefore there are sufficient food in quantity which are taken in the crew module and the service module, and the oxygen supply and the water, and also the provision for disposal of the waste. So this has been thoroughly addressed and it is taken care. As we always say, space is not just the electronics, mechanical or electrical. It is also the medical and the medical related aspects of the space mission is tested to the extent when we are taking astronaut to the space.
Right. Mr. Lele, if you could help us simplify the stages of this mission as well. For a layperson, we understand there's going to be a launch, then the orbiting of the Earth for 3 days, and then the crucial coming back to Earth safely. How is each of these stages crucial?
You see, all over the world, there are two types of models, broadly speaking, of going to the space and getting back. The one model, which was used by the United States of America, the space shuttle model, where you sit inside an aircraft, take off from the runway, get airborne, subsequently get spaceborne, stay in the space, then again enter the Earth's atmosphere and land on the runway. But what India is following is basically a Soyuz type of a model, which is more close towards the Russian type of a model, where you are being put into the space, but while getting back to the space, you are not coming as an aircraft. So there is a direct drop-down activity which happens in Indian case, it's going to happen in the seas, so which will happen in a designated landing zone. So there the landing will happen. As it was explained earlier, that's why the challenges are more in these types of models, because you are continuously in a sitting posture for a good amount of a time. And for the astronauts to get trained for those purposes is extremely important. And that's the reason now, if you can see that all the astronauts who have been selected are the pilots of Indian Air Force, and more importantly, they're the test pilots. So it's a deep selection process under which people have undergone. So their understanding of both technologies as well as their physical capacities all have been taken care of. So particularly for the missions like a Soyuz type of a model, more amount of training is required, and astronauts are required to be totally physically fit, because there is hardly any activity or any scope for making some more amount of motions or moving around here and there. And now what happens is that since you do not have a space station, normally what happens is today when the astronauts, particularly the Western astronauts, when they go to the space, they just link their spacecraft to the International Space Station and enter inside the space station. Again, a zero gravity atmosphere, but a controlled atmosphere for many years, and people exactly understand how to move around over there and do the routine activities. But in this case, it's only a craft, the spacecraft, which goes to the space, and that only gets back. So there's very little scope for undertaking any sorts of activities.
Right. And Mr. Lele, finally, in the larger context, Gaganyaan is a big highlight, but the manner in which the space sector in the country has transformed, how do you assess the recent reforms, from opening up the sector for direct foreign investment to the rise of space startups? How are they all coming together to give India's space sector the shape as we see it?
You see, what happens is that now if you see India's space policy, last year we have come out with a space policy which has clearly identified the roles of the government of India, that is the Department of Space, the role which will be played by ISRO. Then you have what agencies which have been specifically made to undertake the business proposals also. At the same time, now we have got a lot of startups which are boomed up into Bangalore, Hyderabad area, and they're doing a wonderful job. In fact, a couple of months back, one of the startup has already undertaken a sounding rocket launch, and few other systems already have been tested. Now, recently, only just 3-4 days back, Government of India has announced the policy 100% FDI into the space sector. That also is going to make certain amount of a boom. In fact, the moment this policy was announced, there has been almost 7% increase into the stock value of various space agencies, the private space agencies which are working out. One more aspect is that we have already established a system where the PSLV, which is known as ISRO's workhorse, which is continuously undertaking launches. Now the commercial launches which are required and which ISRO was undertaking will be undertaken by the private agencies.
Right.
So ISRO is sharing the knowledge, sharing the technology with private agencies. They will be now undertaking the PSLV launches. That is going to bring more amount of revenue. Then we have developed a small satellite launch vehicle also, which again is going to boost up, because most of the requirements of the satellites in modern day world, particularly when you're looking at satellite based internet and other things, is small, mini, micro satellites. So to carry those types of satellites, we have already developed another vehicle, that is SSLV, and we are going to upgrade the activities of a SSLV also.
Okay.
So more amount of a market which is going to emerge into these sectors.
Exciting developments in the India space sector. On that note, thank you very much, Mr. Jalele, Dr. S.V. Sharma, for joining us in the News Hour and sharing your perspective. And still to come on DD India News Hour. After successfully completing the trilateral exercise Dosti at Maldives, Indian Coast Guard ships Samarth and Abhinav have reached Sri Lankan port of Gale. Indian paceman Mohammad Shami said to miss IPL 2024 and T20 World Cup after undergoing ankle surgery. And New Zealand fast bowler Neil Wagner calls time on his illustrious 64-test career, announcing his retirement from international cricket.
In a world that never stops, where information shapes our reality, one app stands out, helps you stay ahead of time. Introducing the DD India app, your gateway to a world of news right at your fingertips. Your most trusted source of news goes global, goes digital. Explore a world of options, top stories, live updates, in-depth analysis, and more. Stay informed wherever you are. Real-time alerts keep you ahead of the curve always. The DD India app, connecting you to the world, one story at a time. Download now and explore the world of knowledge, insights, and authentic information.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. New Pakistan government led by PMLN Chief Shehbaz Sharif is likely to be formed by March 2nd. But political uncertainty still looms large in neighbouring country. A Pakistani court on Tuesday indicted jailed former PM Imran Khan and his third wife Bushra Bibi on bribery charges. Khan's party condemned the indictment, said the trials conducted behind prison walls only meant to pave way for miscarriage of justice.
With the power-sharing deal already inked, and the Pakistan People's Party are moving ahead with plans to form a coalition government by March 2 and hold the presidential election before March 9. As per media reports, Pakistan's lawmakers will meet on February 29 to elect a prime minister, with former Premier Shehbaz Sharif expected to take the job. The meeting comes weeks after February 8 national polls, as two family-controlled parties, PMLN and Pakistan People's Party, agreed to form a coalition government to shut out jailed leader Imran Khan's group, despite it winning the most seats in contentious elections. Giving another blow to Imran Khan, a Pakistani court on Tuesday indicted him and his wife Bushra Bibi on charges that they allegedly received land as a bribe during his premiership. Imran Khan is in jail since August last year. He has already been convicted in 2 cases on corruption charges that disqualified him from taking part in politics for 10 years. In a statement, the PTI condemned the indictment, saying trials conducted behind prison walls only meant to paving way for miscarriage of justice. Pakistan is in a severe economic crisis, with foreign exchange reserves down to nearly $3 billion and inflation at approximately 28%. Reports suggest a high probability of a breakdown of the supply chain, which will potentially worsen inflation in the coming months. Against this backdrop, the new government faces a challenging task. It needs to immediately negotiate with the International Monetary Fund for a new loan to support the cash-strapped economy. Bureau Report, DD, India.
Japan's government data reveals on Tuesday the number of babies born in the country fell for an 8th consecutive year to a record low in 2023. Birth rates fell 5.1% in 2022 to around 758,000. Marriage rates slid 5.9% to about 489,000. The number fell below 500,000 for the first time in 90 years. After successfully completing the trilateral exercise, Dosti at Maldives, Indian Coast Guard ships Samarth and Abhinav have reached Sri Lankan port of Gale. During the visit, ships will conduct various training and visits for Sri Lanka Coast Guard personnel. The 16th edition of the Banial Dosti validated and strengthened the joint commitment of the Coast Guards of India, Sri Lanka and Maldives to stand together for the common good. Indian Air Chief Marshal V.R. Chaudhary paid tributes to members of Bangladesh Armed Forces who made the supreme sacrifice during the Liberation War of 1971 by laying a wreath at the altar of Shikhar Anirban in Dhaka. The Indian Air Chief Marshal is on a 3-day visit to Bangladesh at the invitation of Air Marshal Sheikh Abdul Hanan, the Chief of Air Staff, Bangladesh Air Force. He is accompanied by a 3-member delegation team. Armed Police Force of Nepal performed the simulation rescue operation of Chandragiri Hilltop, which is one of the popular tourist destinations for visitors in Kathmandu Valley. In this rescue operation, Nepal Armed Police prowess is quick rescue of passengers stuck in cable cars due to any emergency, adds to the sense of security for the tourist. Here's a report by DD India correspondent from Kathmandu, Shweta Singh.
Armed Police Force pitches in to ensure a quick rescue response, the convenience of...
Nepal police demonstrated rescue operation of passengers held in cable car in Chandragiri Hill. Chandragiri Hill being a hilltop of 8,524 feet in Kathmandu is one of the famous tourist spot. So, with demonstration of this rescue operation, there is much more safety and security sense imbibed in the passengers now. Shweta Singh for DD India, Kathmandu.
In sports, New Zealand paceman Neil Wagner on Tuesday called time on his illustrious 64-test career, announcing retirement from international cricket. The left-armer is bowing out as the nation's 5th highest wicket-taker with 260 victims. Wagner was picked for the 2-test series against Australia starting in Wellington on Thursday, but was told by selectors he would not feature in either the opener or the second match in Christchurch. He retires with an outstanding bowling average of 27.57 runs and a strike rate of 52, only bettered by Richard Hadley's 50. Among New Zealanders to have taken more than 100 test wickets, Wagner will continue to play first-class cricket but said the time was right to step away from the tests. As India gears up for its biggest festival of democracy, the general elections, Prime Minister Narendra Modi encouraged first-time voters to exercise their democratic right by joining the Mera Pehla Vote, Desh Ke Liye campaign.
हूँ कोई बच्ची नहीं, नई हूँ पर कच्ची नहीं।
मानो या ना मानो तुम, कुछ बड़ा करने की है बारी यही, भविष्य देश का लिखने की तैयारी यही।
बचपन से अब तक मेरी माटी ने दुलारा, आज मुझको है मेरे देश ने पुकारा। जो चल पड़े हैं हम सबके कदम, बदलने भाग्य देश का निकल पड़े हैं हम। आज चल पड़े हैं हम सबके कदम, बदलने भाग्य देश का निकल पड़े हैं हम। हो
बनेगा देश महान जब वोट करेंगे हम।
ये जीवन ये तन मन सब कुछ है तुम्हारा, आज मुझको है मेरे देश ने पुकारा।
जो सोचे और ठाने तो करके दिखा दे, ऐसे है मेरे देश के फौलादी इरादे।
आज चल पड़े हैं हम सबके कदम, बदलने भाग्य देश का निकल पड़े हैं हम। हो
बनेगा देश महान जब वोट करेंगे हम।
क्या तेरा क्या मेरा सब तुझ पे ही बारा, आज मुझको है मेरे देश ने पुकारा। अपनी यारों की खाओ कसम, बदलने भाग्य देश का निकल पड़े हैं हम। हो
कश्मीर से कन्याकुमारी है सब अपने, यहाँ पे कोई बेगाना नहीं। हम तो यहाँ पे सब देश के दीवाने, तो हमसे कोई टकराना नहीं। आवाज यही, अधिकार यही, आजादी का पुरस्कार यही, लोकतंत्र का पहले संस्कार यही, संस्कार यही।
अपनी यारी की खाओ कसम, करेंगे अपना पहला वोट देश के लिए हम। ये जीवन
फर्स्ट टाइम
जी सर,
सब कुछ है तुम्हारा, आज मुझको है मेरे देश ने पुकारा।
That's all for this edition of DD India News Hour. Let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Instagram, Facebook and X. And we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India from our entire team. Namaskar.